Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us for Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy. On the fire danger chart today, not a lot of change here in the eastern area. Still another sunny, dry day. Temperatures not quite as warm as yesterday, but still pushing up toward 80 degrees. Moisture spreading north and northwest back this way up to the northwest. So fire danger improving a little bit out in those areas there with the clouds, moisture, higher humidities, and some cases even some pretty significant rainfall occurring. But still on the high side or extreme there over areas of the Yukon Delta, and still high fire danger there in both northeast Bristol Bay and the Copper River Basin. Looking at the satellite imagery today, you can see that big area of clouds and precipitation actually from south central Alaska here right up to the western Arctic coastal area. Still pretty windy up in that area as well today. And then breaking out a little bit here to the southwest, another system, pretty weak, keeping it cloudy though, and occasionally damp there across Kodiak Island. And southeast flow continuing to pull showers into the Kenai Peninsula area. Lots of clouds out here over the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. And less clouds, more than yesterday, but still breaking out into some sunshine here over the eastern interior. And a lot of clear skies over the Yukon. Big push to the southeast, cold front there dropping southeastward, actually extending back up, cutting across the from southeast to northwest there, northeast interior, pulling some cooler temperatures in. Southeast coast mostly cloudy, partly to mostly cloudy. Looks like a little more clearing down to the south there with a few isolated showers, nothing too significant there. And then a swirl in the clouds there south of Kodiak Island associated with the front, which is pretty weak, pushing up into the area there and kind of falling apart with some periods of very light rain or scattered showers, cloudy skies with that. And then lots of clouds all the way out to the Komodorsky Islands and the western Bering Sea. And looks like a few breaks possibly over the Seward Peninsula. Putting that, rolling that through again one more time, you can see basically dry again, continuing over the Yukon Delta, back into central Kuskokwim Valley areas there. And the chart today showing that cold front coming southward here, and northeast winds pulling cooler temperatures into the northeast interior, upper Yukon Valley, back on to the eastern Arctic coast. And showers breaking out along, or thunderstorms, breaking out in advance of this cold front this afternoon from about the central Tanana Valley, east-southeast there over to the border and into the Yukon. And then just mostly clouds and showers back to the west there, heaviest along the western Alaska Range, Prince William Sound area down south coast of the Kenai Peninsula. And then a band of moisture with this weakening front coming up toward Kodiak Island, and showers across the Alaska Peninsula, up across the Aleutian, or the Pribilof areas there, and then that low center actually, up toward Kuskokwim Bay with that low center near the Pribilofs, and a pretty good front swinging southeastward, turning east there across the central Aleutians. There's some gusty winds and a little bit of moisture there today, and then improving, but staying cloudy back to the west there. Higher pressure trying to build into the western Aleutians. Again, over the southeast coast, a little bit of moisture possible here today, pretty scattered and light over the northern Panhandle, not too bad down to the south, but still a lot of clouds. Same thing for the North Gulf coastal areas. And looking at the forecast for tonight, front not really pushing too much farther to the south there. Still an area, band of enhanced convection clouds and even some rain going on, southeast flow, kind of colliding with the northeast flow coming down from the north there. And so kind of a convergence zone right along that front, keeping it basically intact with a 999 millibar center there over in the Yukon. And again, mostly low clouds and some rain or drizzle here along the southern southeast coast later on tonight, right up to the coastline. Otherwise mostly cloudy, isolated showers for the remainder of the area. Showers start to get a little more a little less isolated, a little more scattered for the North Gulf Coast. And then the remnant moisture of that trough and actually low center here, low center weakening into a trough, the front really falling apart, a couple of bands of moisture coming up toward the North Gulf Coast, again keeping it wet there, Kenai Peninsula, Resurrection Bay, on down and then across southern Cook Inlet into Kachemak Bay, maybe Iliamna picking up some showers, and staying damp, unsettled for Kodiak Island, but trending toward improving a little bit there with that weakening system starting to pull off to the north. And isolated showers out over the Yukon Delta tonight, otherwise some partial clearing as well. Back into the showers along the Kuskokwim Mountains. And evening thunderstorms here along that frontal boundary tonight, central interior on eastward. Areas of light precipitation along the front back to the northwest, and clearing out over the Koyukuk Valley, precipitation ending. And then some showers lingering there for the Brooks Range, and then better conditions for the north slope and the Arctic coast. Staying breezy here, a little kind of a down, gradual diminishing of the wind, but gale warnings out for the western Arctic coast through tomorrow, and less wind on the east side there with less gradient. Out over the Bering Sea, have that 998 millibar low slowly moving eastward there, that trough beginning to swing around, come in toward the eastern Aleutians. So it'll improve a little bit there, but some pretty gusty small craft advisory type winds out of the west and northwest there, kind of following that in behind. And then some more moisture beginning to slide up toward the Alaska Peninsula. Bristol Bay, mostly cloudy tonight. Areas of light rain or showers, or just cloudy with areas of light rain or showers across the entire area. And then looking ahead for tomorrow, you can see a weak trough coming up to the North Gulf Coast. Keeps it cloudy. Good chance of showers, or at least a chance of showers here for the Cordova area. Less of a chance for Valdez, but a little bit better again for Portage, or for the Portage and Whittier area there. And then back down the Kenai Peninsula to Kodiak Island. Still a chance of showers, basically southerly flow there. Another trough just to the south, so that'll be slipping on up tomorrow night, increasing the shower threat there. Otherwise, a little bit less in the way of convection out over the southwest interior tomorrow afternoon. Maybe some showers, also maybe some sun scattered around as well. Go with the clouds. And still looking at an enhanced area here along that trough axis, the old frontal boundary right through here. Cooler, drier conditions to the north, and then the higher freezing levels here to the south with that moisture feed beginning to weaken now. Now that it's becoming more of a kind of a west-southwest or south, turning southwest into the southeast coast. So that'll drive the remnants of that front in the form of a trough into the area there for some showers. And again, possible thunderstorms there from the central Tanana Valley eastward across the 40-mile country, eastern Alaska Range, possibly Nabesna, on into the Yukon, but definitely more sunshine up over the upper Yukon Valley, all the way up to possibly even the Arctic coast there, east side of that continued east-northeast flow. Vulnerable to those surges of low clouds and patchy fog coming in on those winds, but offshore flow here making for some good VFR there for the western Arctic coast. Winds, again, still gales in the forecast tomorrow, but then beginning to come down and south of actually Cape Lisburne. So from Point Hope on down, really much lighter winds there across the Chukchi Sea to the Seward Peninsula. Light wind pattern here all across the central and eastern Bering Sea now. Virtually no gradient at all, or very little gradient, so pretty light winds, light and variable, with some scattered showers over the Kuskokwim Delta to Bristol Bay. Sunshine possible there for the Alaska Peninsula, especially areas west of Sand Point here, with the shower threat, Sand Point to Chignik on over to Sitkinak. Could see some sunshine possibly for the Pribilof Islands, although probably clouds and fog a better bet, with some shower chances with weakening low here over the eastern Aleutians, mainly for Nikolsky and less for Unalaska. Gusty northwest winds, not all that bad, still some small craft advisory winds there just behind that low center. And then the next system just coming onto the chart here, which tomorrow night will begin to push into the Aleutians a little bit, but mostly on Monday it's not really moving all that fast. It pushes the front there, still west of Shimei and Attu Monday afternoon. So that'll bring those winds up again, 30-35 knots out of the east-southeast, with rain spreading eastward, but staying west of AKwx. May pick up some showers and clouds, and that's about it. But the main rain and wind will still be west of the central Aleutians until probably Monday evening or Monday night. Otherwise, weak high pressure, light winds covering the central and eastern Bering Sea right up to the coastline. Low clouds and fog pretty prevalent. Also maybe some clearing. So optimistically along the Alaska Peninsula here on out to the eastern Aleutian areas, as well as the Arctic coast looking pretty good up there. Still breezy, hanging on to those 20-knot winds there along much of the coastline, 25 knots on the west side, so coming down under gale force for Monday, but still a pretty good gradient there with that 1,025 millibar Arctic high to the north, and then this thermal trough in the interior. Along the trough axis and to the south, that's where the best chance of convection will be, especially over the central interior, again eastward into the border there, possibly into the Copper River Basin. Look for some showers possible here over the Talkeetna Mountains into the Chugach, Kenai Peninsula, otherwise Cook Inlet, partly sunny skies, partly sunny also for Prince William Sound and the North Gulf Coast, with most of the convection up to the north inland areas. Southeast coast, though, better chance of showers, a little more in the way of shower threat for Monday. Central and northern areas isolated down to the south. And this system southeast of Kodiak may catch the southern island with a little bit of moisture, light rain possibly there. Otherwise, about Kodiak State Airport on north, partly to mostly cloudy, just a risk of a shower. And areas of low clouds, as I mentioned, on the increase here over the Bering Sea, with the thermal low over the interior. Temperatures still on the mild side, not all that warm, still the cooler air here coming behind that remnants of the front, which would be right through this area, hardly even a trough now, but still a good convergence of some showers and thunderstorms, probably mostly in the afternoon. Temperatures across the Panhandle today all in the 50s, ranging from 50 degrees at Elfin Cove to 57 down at Ketchikan and Skagway at 59. Then you're back into the near 80-degree mark there in the Yukon, 68 over at Gulkana, cooler along the coast, lower 50s, 52 Cordova, 51 in Seward. Kodiak only 48 degrees today, this afternoon at 4 o'clock, 59 in Homer, 54 Kenai, a 56-degree reading at Palmer with Talkeetna up to 54. Upper 70s now for the east side there with 78 at Delta, 76 at Fairbanks. It's down 11 from yesterday with 60s, cooler 60s, lower 60s over the upper Yukon Valley, 41 Anatuvik, 30s, lower to mid 30s there for the Arctic coast, upper 30s on the west side over the inland areas, and 60s along the southwest coast, 50s, 55 McGrath and Bethel, warmer out there along the Yukon Delta coast into the mid 60s, a little more sunshine, and mid 40s for the Pribilofs, lower 40s for all of the Aleutians, back into the mid 40s, upper 50s Bristol Bay. Lows tonight, mildest here over the central interior, around the 50-degree mark, Tanana Valley, on out to the Seward Peninsula, up to the Noatak Valley, 20s, 25 to 30 there for the North Slope and Arctic coast, otherwise everywhere else in the 40s. Highs for tomorrow looks like continuing to cool here over the eastern interior, down again into the lower to mid 60s for the forecast, 66 at Eagle and Fort Yukon, lower 60s back to the southwest down the lower Yukon River Valley areas to near 50 out along the coast, 30s again for the Arctic coast, and 50s for the Panhandle. Flying weather tomorrow, some IFR likely persisting Kenai Peninsula up into western Prince William Sound, Portage Pass area, marginal VFR eastward into the northern Panhandle. A lot of IFR mostly out over the Bering Sea, away from the coastline here, except catching Cape Neuenam and down toward Pilot Point, eastern Arctic coast, areas of IFR. And tomorrow afternoon, improving the marginal there with VFR on the west side, IFR, Chukchi Sea, southward, a little narrower now, but all the way down to the central Aleutians. Big area VFR here for Bristol Bay. Marginal VFR along that moisture with the showers and thunderstorms over the areas north of the Alaska Range from west to east. And passes Anatuvik and Adigan, both VFR. Lake Clark, Merrill, rainy, all VFR, pretty good tomorrow. Isabel starting out marginal, becoming VFR. Same forecast for Mentasta, improving throughout the afternoon. Tanita, VFR, Portage, IFR, eastern approach throughout the day. Chilkoot and White, occasionally marginal. Freezing levels, cooler air now right up to the North Gulf Coast for late tonight and tomorrow morning. 10,000 feet here holding over the east central interior areas. And the icing threat with those areas of moisture and convection, mixed icing possible of about 9,000 feet through the central interior, another batch into the North Gulf Coast, northern Panhandle, and another one sliding up toward Kodiak in the afternoon. Upper level wind flow chart with the high freezing levels. There's the upper level ridge in the same orientation. Easterly flow 70 knots around that ridge there. So moisture coming up, it's splitting here off the coast. So just really weak remnants of that front reaching the Panhandle tomorrow. 9,000 feet. Westerly flow 10 to 15 from the Gulf of Alaska in across the Panhandle. More southerly, very light though, light and variable central interior. 20 to 30 knots Arctic coast. Northwest 20 to 25 to 30 for the central Aleutians. And that same wind speed for 3,000 feet here, trough right through here, northwest 25 to 30 as a ridge pops up behind it. Light variable winds over the interior, 35 knots out of the east, western Arctic coast, 10 to 15 for the Panhandle. Turbulence-wise, looking like this, none for the Panhandle. Again, up here, strongest winds, gale warnings, so occasional light to moderate chop, occasional moderate chop there on the western Arctic coast in a narrow area than today. Otherwise, not too bad everywhere else. And after the break, I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
Welcome to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider with the National Weather Service, and joining us today, two more people to talk about the augmented reality sandbox. It's Alana Valaji. She's a University of Alaska Fairbanks mechanical engineering student, helped design and work on the details to make this new type of sandbox there. Thanks for joining us, Alana. Thanks. And Courtney Breest, she's the outreach coordinator for AKwx, which is the experimental program to stimulate competitive research. It's a program funded nationally by the National Science Foundation, right?
Yes.
Okay. Alana, tell us about how you changed and adapted this version of the augmented reality sandbox. It's a really cool tool.
So Gina approached us with 3 goals for this new version of the sandbox. They wanted it to be compact in a light system that could travel around the state. They wanted it to be child-oriented, so we designed the sandbox to have 3 different levels.
Okay.
It's pretty cool. You can have younger children, you can have high school kids. I guess I should say high school teenagers.
Sure.
And then we also designed it to be more marketable, user-friendly, so that this could be seen eventually in classrooms all over the place, all over the state.
Okay. And you had a big hand in this, but this was a team approach, right?
Definitely. It was a really good experience for myself, for George Stevens, who we'll see later.
One of our hand models today. Yeah.
For 2 other members who aren't here today, Cody Klingman and Austin Hunt. And it was just a really good learning experience all around.
Very good. And this is something that is part of your learning experience as well, so you get to check a box in your education.
Yeah,
right?
it's a requirement for seniors of mechanical engineering at University of Alaska Fairbanks.
Very good. Very good. Well, it is a wonderfully inquisitive tool, fun to play with, and I hope to get my hands in the sand here in just a little bit. But it's also part of a bigger program, something that we were talking about a moment ago, AKwx, and that's what Courtney is here to tell us more about. What is AKwx and why do you need a sandbox?
Well, AKwx, as you mentioned, is a national program. We're funded nationally, but we're actually located statewide. We're at UAF, we're at UAA, we're in Southeast at UAS. And she mentioned, you know, taking the sandbox as an educational tool, and that's where I'm an outreach coordinator for the South Central test case.
Okay.
Our focus is on the Kenai watershed, and we are really interested in using these tools like the sandbox to interact with the students down there and get them interested in STEM and also communicate the research findings that we've been having throughout the state.
Okay. And one of those, as George and Eric are kind of changing the contours for us there from UAF to maybe something that resembles a little bit of something more of the Kenai watershed, which is one of your focuses for the study, right? And specifically looking at some of the changes there and how that impacts people and also the salmon.
Yes, it is all of our research is social and environmental.
Okay.
So we have social scientists working hand in hand with our environmental scientists. One of the things we're studying is Upper Russian Lake, and we have a researcher taking sediment cores from that lake. So one of the things we're going to use the sandbox to communicate is how the landscape changed over a long period of time, thousands of years, going from glacier, covered by glacier ice, to being filled with water. And then
that's what they're doing right now.
Exactly. So
live.
They're exactly. So they're
so
moving
cool.
the water around. And then I think they've got some props over there because we're also going to go a little bit more in depth and explain how the salmon got there.
Okay.
So using
And there's
these,
the salmon.
exactly. Oh, I think there's a few more.
Yeah, we like more salmon in Alaska. More salmon.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really taking the findings from our research grant and just trying to connect with the community and translate it in a really hands-on and exciting way so people can, you know, interact with us as much as possible.
Well, sure. That makes the learning and the science real and quite literally in your face rather than just some boring black and white paper that you have to read about. This is something that people can understand better because it's visual and they're touching and feeling and seeing these changes, right?
Yeah, and get them engaged. And then outreach is a huge component, and working with the younger students, and actually even, I mean, working with the UAF graduate and engineering students it's a huge part of our grant, and we really enjoy it.
Oh, it is wonderfully exciting. And so, Alana, you were telling us that this is built to travel.
Right.
And this is built to do more things than version 1. Where can this type of project go in Alaska? And what can it demonstrate?
I mean, we were hoping to eventually get to villages that were harder to reach, that you couldn't necessarily move a whole fixed instrument to, right? You need something that can pack up, fit in your truck bed. I mean, one of the most attractive parts of this project is that this was going to be something that was used past our graduation point. You know, this is going to be something that lives in the state for years.
Right, right. Well, it looks like you're well on your way with that. So what are, give me another example. What else can this show us? We've talked about the Kenai River watershed. What's the coolest thing that you've played in the sand with? What's your idea?
Well, I definitely enjoy the props, but we also like kind of building up a giant mound, and if you put some water behind it, you can make a little runway, I guess, and you know, demonstrate the effects of the hydrology by just putting up a dam and letting it all pour right down. And so that could, I think you mentioned it earlier, you could even demonstrate the effects of a tsunami.
Right.
Or something along those lines.
So it's not just topography, but it's also hydrology and coastal surge mapping and some of the coastal changes that we're seeing here in Alaska, and seeing what the smaller changes in the sandbox might do to kind of a real effect of a slosh or a push of water up on the coast. Tsunami inundation mapping, or even glacial dam release, as some has been demonstrated before. So wow, that's just an impressive thing. That it seems like the possibilities are nearly endless with this, and probably even more ideas that are popping up in your head too.
Yeah, as we speak.
Very cool. All right. Well, if folks want to get more information about AKwx, you guys are online. You're on Facebook, Twitter, and on YouTube. AKwx, right? AKwx, Alaska AKwx, that is. And again, you guys are funded by the National Science Foundation, so more to come from that, and a longer-term study there. Thank you, ladies, for joining us today. Congratulations on your hard work there. This is really fun. And for now, I'm meteorologist Dave Snider with this edition of Alaska Weather Facts, and I'm going to go play in the sandbox there. We'll see you next time.
Welcome back. Looking at marine forecasts, not too bad out along the coast. Westerlies 15 knots on the south side, turning southwest to very light southerly winds up on the extreme north coast. 15-knot variable directions over much of the inside waters until you get up into Lynn Canal and northern Lynn Canal, coming up to 25 knots tomorrow afternoon for small craft advisories. And then for Monday, coming back down to 20 knots, 4-foot seas, southeast, a little more uniform wind pattern now over the central and southern inside waters, but light winds from the west-southwest all along the coast, just 10 to 15 knots with seas 7 feet or less. And for Prince William Sound tomorrow, east 15, southeast 20 for the North Gulf Coast there with 8-foot seas. So small craft advisories all the way down here, Kodiak Island on the east side, 20 knots, Shelikof Strait, and then light variable winds for Kachemak Bay, and really light variable winds for Cook Inlet as well with 2-foot seas. And then those swing around in the afternoon, southwesterlies 15 for the inlet there, light variable winds now for Kachemak Bay. Eastward for the North Gulf Coast, light winds, Prince William Sound, east 15, Barren Islands down across Kodiak Island. And for Bristol Bay, southwest at 15, and then 25-knot winds here from Sitkinak over to Castle Cape with 9-foot seas, otherwise southerlies 15 for the peninsula. Those turn around to the northwest, 15 as high as 20 knots here on the Pacific side, and then north 20 knots, Sitkinak to Castle Cape. Light westerly breeze for Bristol Bay. The Aleutians, southeast 15 for Unalaska Island, south-southeast, but big increase here Just to the west there, west 25 to 30 knots all the way back to just west of Adak, and then diminishing a little bit there under higher pressure in advance of the next front, which will kick those winds up on Monday. 30, maybe 35 knots possibly, and then 25 knots increasing throughout the day here west of Adak. Otherwise light winds for Adak and Atka. West 15 to 20, light variable winds for Unalaska Island. And for the southwest coast, light variable winds tomorrow as well. Northerlies 15, St. Lawrence Island, northern Bering Sea swinging around to the east over the Pribilofs. Monday, light variable winds much of the Bering Sea here. Westerly breezes 15 knots along the west coast, and light winds for St. Lawrence Island. Up along the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, central and eastern coast, northeast 15 to 20 knots, still carrying gales through tomorrow, or at least a portion of the day tomorrow. East 35 there on the west side, higher gusts, and then brisk wind advisories from Cape Thompson to Cape Beaufort, or Cape Beaufort to Cape Thompson, with 20-knot winds to the south. Even lighter winds, more of a northwest direction here from Wales up to Cape Thompson. Easterlies 20 knots, now down to 25 knots there for the west side. East winds 20, really uniform pattern here for the Arctic coast over the demarcation point on Monday. For tonight, not too bad up in that area, still windiest here on the west side, and then band of moisture there. Could be some pretty significant showers, scattered thunderstorms, especially this evening here near that frontal boundary, with showers to the south, a couple of bands of moisture rotating up toward the coastline, pushing in toward the panhandle, and that'll keep it mostly cloudy with unsettled conditions for Sunday in that area, as well as the North Gulf Coast. Thunderstorms once again along this weakening frontal boundary that stays persistent through the interior there, both tomorrow and Monday. Drier, cooler conditions back to the north, still breezy along the Arctic coast. Shower chances south central Alaska back into Bristol Bay. And then for Monday, there's the next front pushing into the far western Aleutians, high pressure light winds over the Bering Sea. And again, here right through the, or just south of, right across the Tanana Valley, down into the Copper River Basin. Best chance of thunderstorms. Could be a pretty significant area of precipitation in this zone, with drier conditions and more sunshine to the north, and scattered showers mostly cloudy to the south. Have a great evening.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.